We're all locked
No.
in.
Oh.
Oh, and probably, we're missing Mitch and he's locked in too. Good coming out. Just me? No, you're fine. Yes, good.
So you're locking in?
Me too. I had the same problem, Mitch. I walked around. And I'm still getting set up.
Say Julie Order. You said say Julie Order. Okay. You're right. Let me make sure you can share screen. Okay, yeah, no, it's. We can start this.
We're good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Please rise for, I'm calling for your order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay. We've already covered the executive session, so I guess we're gonna have the HVEA presentation on Route 9 culvert over the tributary of Barney Brook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public informational meeting for project number 876326. This is a culvert replacement in the village of Irvington across Route 9. Most of you might know this area by the Downingwood condominiums. My name is Matt Erbacher. I work for HVA Engineers. The village has hired us to do this design consulting. And just as a request, if everyone could just hold the questions till the end, that would just make the presentation just go a lot smoother. So just a quick overview as to what this briefing is mostly about. We want to just introduce this project to the public. Public outreach is a huge part of local projects and kind of like what they're looking to accomplish. At the end of the day, you guys have probably been driving these roads for potentially decades. So I lean to you in terms of this whole project area. We're obviously been on the team for about a year, so we're getting our bearings as well. But and lastly, it's also a funding requirement for local projects as well to hold a public outreach meeting. And we'll just introduce the project team, do a little bit of existing conditions, and then a little bit of our design. And then we'll close it off with some project schedule and how everyone can provide comments. So the municipal team, we've been working closely with Larry, the village administrator, and Fiona Matthews, who's grant administrator. From our side, Jack Gordon, who's here tonight, does a lot of federal aid compliance, just kind of overseeing the whole project. Then myself, I am the project manager. I'm overseeing mostly the highway design, and then I'll lean on James Kerr, one of our structural designers, to do the structurals design. And then lastly, Andrew O'Gorman, who's here with us as well, is going to help with the highway design. A little bit of background about the existing culvert. It dates all the way back to the 1920s. It's actually a very obscure layout. Kind of changes directions and a few points. Not really great for hydraulic efficiency, as well as varying pipe materials. It starts with a corrugated metal arch and kind of transitions at some point through there with a stone box culvert. Just not great for how we want the whole system to run. You know, you have a lot of losses once you start introducing joints in the system. So obviously why you'll be seeing a lot of flooding in this area, road closures every 18 months on average. That'll happen when you have those kind of existing conditions in that culvert. And then lastly, public safety. Obviously Route 9 is a very popular route. You want your emergency vehicles, buses, and other methods of getting to public transportation to be accessible, obviously. So any sort of flooding on this road is obviously desirable. And lastly, all that flooding can lead to a lot of shoulder and sidewalk erosion. So that can lead to all sorts of other failures as well. So definitely good to get this stuff addressed. And in the map in the bottom right corner, you can kind of see the project area. 100 South Broadway is right there. It's a larger property on the west side of Route 9. And then, of course, the Downingwood condominium complex on the side of the culvert. A little deeper about the existing conditions. So the flooding for this existing culvert cannot pass a 25-year storm. Highway design manual that New York State DOT has says that all proposed culverts should pass a 50-year storm. So, I mean, that's less than half, obviously not ideal. Poor hydraulic conductivity. That's basically how the water flows through the system. It's obviously being impeded by a number of things. We actually have some pictures on the next slide that you'll see. But going into inside the culvert, very poor structural condition. You'll see some crushed concrete pipes, some loose stones blocking the path of the flow. So it's very obvious to see why there's flooding in this spot. These are those pictures I was referring to. Yeah, on the leftmost picture, you can kind of see the crushed pipe as well as some debris potentially clogging up the existing culvert. You see like some kind of just broken down fragments in the middle as well, and then kind of see the redirection in the culvert in that last picture. And it's just you have so many losses once you start introducing all those changes in direction, and it'll just operate much better once you're kind of have a new proposed system with a straight concrete or whichever we choose material.
Sorry,
Sure.
I know you said ask questions at the end, but I want a definition. Losses meaning leakage out of the culvert?
Just like head losses and like in the flow of we'll run like an analysis, and you kind of have like head losses once you like introduce those like redirections. It's kind of just like it's like a loss in energy. It's
Which means the water may back up, contributing to flooding.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Some project objectives and design standards. So obviously our primary objective while we're here is to replace the culvert itself. We want to improve that hydrology, kind of how the water acts through the system. As I mentioned, alleviating flooding, get to that 50-year design storm. Obviously existing less than 25. The realignment will definitely help with that flooding as well. If you are in the top left corner, you can kind of see like what we're proposing at the moment. It's just a straight shot right across Route 9, should do a lot for its hydraulic efficiency. And then obviously a uniform material. Having different pipes can definitely help out with that. And then as a byproduct of this project, anytime you touch sidewalk, you have to replace it with ADA compliant sidewalk. So wherever we end with our restoration limits, we'll replace all the sidewalk with ADA compliance sidewalk in that area. A lot of utility coordination. Every utility under the sun is in this area. So we've been in contact with them already and kind of started the process of, there's going to be probably a couple relocations, but we'll do our best not to avoid touching anything. And then lastly, the stone wall on the outlet side. It looks very nice as is, if you guys know the area, but we'll do our best to maintain it and kind of restore it exactly as is. It's a big important factor of this project as well. And then lastly, those standards listed on the bottom are just standard New York State DOT standards that you see on any state job. So, and then obviously 88 per way for sidewalk compliance. So some challenges and considerations that we've encountered. So sizing the new culvert, we obviously wanted to accept that 50-year storm. So we've run a couple models in our HydroCAD program, and that is sized a box culvert for us, and then also a rounded elliptical concrete pipe. And then construction staging will be another big aspect. We obviously don't want to impact the road or don't want to impact traffic as much as we can. So we'll stage this project and try to get in and out of there as fast as we can, obviously. The hydraulic modeling was a little bit of a challenge because the software we use doesn't really like all the change in directions in the system. So you kind of have to model it straight and then kind of do like a hand calculation to figure out all your losses and everything. So that wasn't easy. The outfall sizing, we want to like limit the impacts to that wall, obviously. So we want to just make sure that we're kind of taking as little wall as we can to have to reconstruct all that, because that'll be definitely a task. But and then the utilities, I know there'll be probably an overhead relocation. This is just lands too close to the culvert footprint. So, and then underground sewer is kind of our hold point, as I say. We don't want to touch that at all. So do everything we can to avoid impacting that. And then underground water and gas, will obviously do our best not to impact those as well. But if we have to do a relocation, we'll facilitate that work as well. And then obviously maintaining that aesthetic on that wall. You can see a picture of it on the right side. Looks very nice with a nice ornamental fence. Best to kind of restore that as is. So the work zone, we kind of spoke about it, but so it's basically going to be a single lane closure for a majority of the project limits, and then probably have to do some sort of double interior lane closure to kind of close out the culvert. One thing that will likely be required is a small detour for the condominium to East Clinton, which if you're familiar with the Downing One condominium, you have that main entrance there. Then East Clinton, you can kind of take the side road and kind of get into the condominium that way. It's not ideal by any means to close an access, but I feel like this would probably be best and get us in and out of there as quickly as possible. And then obviously sidewalks will remain open during construction, limited impacts. Some of the work we performed to date, we've obviously obtained survey, evaluate our existing conditions, did some utility inventory, outreach, threatened and endangered species review, as well as the state historic review are both requirements by local projects. So those are well underway. Done some accident analysis and traffic analysis. And then we submitted a design report to DOT back in February. Still pending comments on that. but we're hoping to get those shortly. And our preliminary estimate is set at 1.7 million. That's holds a 20% contingency to it. And then Village has received 1.4 million grant funding. And just a comment about that preliminary estimate, it's obviously it holds a 20% contingency, which is going to bump it up quite a bit. And then it's very early on in design, like we haven't gotten into like some serious detail yet. So that will definitely get refined. We'll try to cut costs as much as we can, obviously. Right-of-way acquisition. So to facilitate this whole design of this culvert, we need a little bit of property from both the Downingwood condominium and 100 South Broadway. This is necessary for construction access, and we have to own the structural components of the culvert just in case we have to perform sort of future maintenance on them. So that the area in red you see is a fee taking, which is a purchase of the land, and then the magenta area is a temporary easement, which is obviously just for the construction period. Both impacted property owners will be involved throughout the process. We will obviously be here to answer any questions. Each step will obviously be described in detail for them. Appraisal, independent appraisal review, offer, there'll be time to negotiate. Hopefully we get a closing that both sides agree to. Lastly, the areas you see highlighted in red and magenta will obviously be restored to exactly their existing condition. So you don't have to worry about them leaving it like a terrible condition or anything. Some project schedules. So we submitted our plans for review by the village in January, followed by a submission at DOT in February. And now we are in June and we are pending DOT comments, but we've recently spoken to them and we expect them any day now. And then hopefully we would do a quick turnaround of that design report and submit our final design report in probably late July, early August, and then hopefully obtain design approval shortly after that. While all that's going on, addressing the comments it's a task, but we can keep our designers busy. So we'll be designing in the background as well, progressing towards a 90% ADP set. And obviously the right-of-way acquisition process, we'd like to close that out as soon as possible, but we'll work through that. November, roughly, submit draft plan specs and estimate that goes by PS&E. We'll have to wait for a DOT comment on that again. Then we'll obviously turn that around, address their comments, and get a final package together for a hopeful project advertisement and award in February, followed by construction in April next year. I will add one contingency and say that these are obviously dependent on DOT review, and we can only move as quickly as they will review things. So, and then also the right-of-way acquisition process can usually just kind of slows a project down a little bit. So if all goes smoothly and according to plan, hopefully construction next spring. Then this is just how you submit any sort of comments. I have my email as well as Larry's on there. I also have a bunch of comment sheets. I'd like to fill out an actual handwritten comment sheet. You can also take one home and scan it to us. That works too. I'll also open up the floor for questions, but I just want to say thank you from the Village of Irvington, HVA engineers. Like I said, everyone's input means a lot to us, and everything you say will be documented in our design report. So we really do take your consideration seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Who leads the right-of-way acquisition negotiation? Is that jointly with Village and engineering?
Yeah, so it would be like a kind of a joint effort between us, and then we would obviously have a lot of communication with DOT because they have their own processes they have to follow as well. They kind of lay out in the local projects manual.
But I'm talking specifically with respect to the property owners themselves. Correct? We have to, yeah, okay, fine. If that was your answer, then that's fine, but I just wanted to make sure.
And I'm having trouble reading the map. I think I'm reading it wrong. How much square footage is being taken?
I'm not sure the exact amount.
Because it looks like it says 4.431 square feet, but that can't be right.
It's probably a comp.
So it's 4,000 square feet?
Yeah, that sounds more.
It's a big chunk. And 1,000 square foot on the other side, 1,014 square feet. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't, okay.
But presumably that's the impact is it's an underground utility, so when the project is done, it is true that the whatever entity is that owned it originally is not the owner, but they pretty much have the ability to traverse it. They were intended to use. I know I'm going a little wider, but you're nodding your head politely. So.
Good, no, reminders are always good. I don't know every.
I have two online and I don't know if there's anything here, but go ahead, let me take.
Yeah,
the
sure.
ones. Hold on a second. So I have, Sal is on, Sal, Martirano. Sal, Andrea is also on. Do you want me to put Andrea on too? Let's see. I think they're both from Downingwood, so. Andrea?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Sal's also on. He didn't answer
That was
back.
also great.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I don't know who else from our condo is on in person. I am the president of the board, but Sal is the most important person speaking for our property. I know Jeff Chester is there in person, and we've been always supportive of this project, but of course we have questions as particularly as it's going to now become a reality. And I just want to make sure that I couldn't, because nobody was identifying themselves who were speaking. I couldn't figure out who was talking for us or not talking for us. So I would start with that, but now I will defer to Sal to ask the questions and then I'll come back later. Okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you hear me? You can? Okay.
Mhm.
Now that I realize there's going to be an acquisition, is that where you plan to have the staging area for this project?
Most of the fee taking or the property taking that you see is due to the proposed culvert going in, and then it has to have basically what's called a layback slope is basically you're digging X amount of feet into the ground, and then you have to basically build your soil back up in like some fashion. So it lays back. So that's kind of most of the impact there. But most of the red area you're seeing, or actually all of the red area you're seeing, will be restored to its existing condition.
Okay. How long do you expect the project to take once you start it?
Shouldn't be any more than I would say like 6 months. Maybe
How long do you
9 on
expect
the conservative- maybe 9 on the conservative side?
How long do you expect the entrance and exit to Downingwood to be closed?
Stage 3, right?
Yeah. It would probably just be like a couple months, maybe.
Couple of months. Okay. If you notice there on that drawing, there's a gate that comes up right across from the island, the center island.
Yeah,
That-
access to like the garbage and stuff.
Correct. So
Yeah.
we'll have to relocate all of the refuse for those 6 months because I don't know how the village would be able to pick up down in that area.
Well, it would only be during the stage 3 period. Never like it would just be hopefully a couple months.
Okay,
But
okay,
likely unless we could find a way to keep access to that driveway, which we could definitely look into.
okay. And as far as storing all of your equipment and everything as the project's going on, where is that gonna be?
It would probably be in a combination of temporary easement areas, and we could possibly talk about a staging yard possibly somewhere nearby.
Okay.
Definitely wouldn't be anywhere on your property, if that's what your
Okay.
concern is.
What if we have a major storm during construction?
Thank you, sir.
What's gonna handle that? How are we gonna handle that?
I mean, there would be some sort of bypass system to kind of facilitate the existing drainage. We haven't really sorted that out in design yet, but that would likely be the route we would go.
Because we've had some significant flooding there in the past, as you know.
Yeah.
In terms of remediation, the remediation includes any disruption to pavement. I can't tell, I'm sorry, I'm not an engineer. I can't tell from the pictures, is our island at the front of the condo going to be torn up?
Yes, it will, but as I mentioned, everything will be restored to its existing condition. Honestly, probably in better condition. Just because of,
We like better if it doesn't cost us money. But, all right, so the island's gonna be disrupted during the construction. And do we have any sense of how far into our entranceway the pavement would be restored?
It would basically be up until that red limit on this plan, if you see it currently. Unless in the temporary easement, if they damage the existing pavement, then they'll be responsible to restore that as well.
Sal, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're gonna restore it, I'm fine with that.
Okay, but we would like to coordinate it with anything that we have to do, so we don't wind up, I mean, this is an important entrance for our condos, so we want to coordinate anything we do with what these guys are going to do, right?
Right, correct. Yes,
So if it starts in April and goes for 6 months, that's kind of getting right down towards the end of the paving people, right?
well,
We're gonna make sure that we get this all done before they close down.
well, there's always emergency paving company, asphalt companies that are
I
open.
know. Hey, so long as we don't have to pay for emergencies, I'm okay, but I just want to make sure that, we're not gonna be left with a mess or a bill, and at the end of 2026.
Sounds like they're gonna incur the cost to do all the restoration work.
Okay. Okay, what's the position of the village with respect to helping us with any issues we have with people getting in and out of Downingwood while we can't use our main entrance exit? Are you guys gonna be there to, help with traffic?
I'll let the engineers talk. This is Larry. I'll let the engineers
Larry.
talk about the actual maintenance and traffic plan, which obviously hasn't been developed yet, but it will be. But to the extent that the village police department and/or DPW can assist, especially in any particularly sensitive operations where traffic may be diverted at critical times, we're there to help. We're doing that on Harriman Road right now. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's.
Yeah.
it's-
We
I wouldn't
got
see that as an issue.
buses coming in and out. We got all sorts of stuff going on. We've got, of course, have your our um, um, uh, trucks coming in and out to take care of garbage disposal. It's not going to be easy coming in on Clinton, and which reminds me, I'm not sure if anybody on on our little road, that's not part of us is involved in this, but they certainly should be because it's going to be a major impact of, Quail Close, the little street.
Yeah.
Could
Down
be
in
a
court.
major-
Down in court.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's-
down in
It's,
court.
it's going to be a major impact on them with respect to our traffic and everything else going on. Has anybody looped them into this?
Not at this point, but that's a very good suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. We try to be good neighbors, but sometimes it doesn't work. So please help.
Absolutely, thank you. And as far as the traffic plan goes, the engineers will be devising the traffic plan, but we typically have our police department take a look at it and offer up their comments on it because they obviously know the traffic patterns in the area much better being local. So we'll review it.
Let me ask a quick question about the entrance to the culvert on the Downingwood property. Are there any safety precautions put in front of that culvert so that no animals or kids or somebody can go through that culvert on Broadway? Or is that just going to be wide open?
It would be open. That would obviously be best case scenario for hydraulics.
Right.
Potentially could look into something if that's a concern. Yeah.
That's a kid and dog friendly area. So that's a good point, Sal. Thanks for raising it.
Because I would assume the culvert's going to be much bigger than it is now
Right.
at the entrance.
Our current alternative is a concrete box culvert that spans about 7 feet wide and 3 feet tall. So I mean, you definitely have like a small child or I guess animal crawling there.
Yep. Okay.
You guys have had some good comments. If you guys could formalize those in an email to myself and Larry, that'd be much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank
Sal,
you.
you can do that, right?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Do you want
Yeah,
to take any
but definitely
questions?
important that you get down in court involved because, if I'm not great at these diagrams, but Sal, that purple thing is on our side is the edge of down in court, right?
No, it doesn't go that far in.
No, okay.
No, the traffic issue is something that was talked about tonight that should definitely be brought up with the folks on Downing Court and East Clinton for that matter. So, yeah, no, that's a very good suggestion. Thank you.
So I guess my answer to your question you didn't quite ask is if people are dying to make a comment, although it's not a tradition in the work session and you want to ask a question, we have the engineers here. So I would only ask, you want to pass them the mic?
No, they can just stand up. 'Cause
Okay,
we have
fine.
mics around.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Paul Scott. I'm a resident of Downingwood. You've continually mentioned that you've designed to the New York State DOT minimum standard of the 50-year design flood event. Now, that's fine. Obviously, we work towards minimums. We're budget conscious here, but it's a very developing environment we live in, and the 50-year flood event occurs every year. So why would we not spend the de minimis amount of additional money to at least have them run the analysis, see what kind of pipe size, what kind of culvert size we'd need for a 100-year storm event or a 500-year storm event? We had a 500-year storm event 2 years ago. So it just seems very myopic to not at least have these guys run the analysis to see what kind of culvert size would be required for that 100-year storm event. So we're not digging this up in 10 years.
There's a couple aspects to that. First of which is like the bigger, obviously you have to upsize the culvert and increasing the impacts to everything around utilities. I believe we can also run our like Q50 storm with like a percentage, like an extra percentage. I feel, do we? Yeah, 20%. Yeah.
It actually ends up making the Q50 more equivalent to what would currently be considered a 100-year storm. So
Yeah, so that's obviously something we could definitely look into.
Yeah, if we're already opening up the road, we're already dealing with utilities. There's no sense to encumber this again.
But solving the problem at that point deal with the fact that the rest of where the water has to pass might not accommodate. It doesn't argue against your point, but if I create a place where 100 years flood can go through, and then it's moving on through the remainder of the village, and all of that is only going to accommodate a 25-year or a 50-year, what does that do?
I mean, obviously,
I know
Yeah.
that was a rhetorical question.
Well, no, it's not totally rhetorical.
there's an answer.
Well, because the culvert, so the next culvert downstream is at Dow's Lane.
Yeah.
And the next one after that is at the Station Road Playground. Both of those were recently replaced as a result of Hurricane Ida. And both of those were upsized. I can't quote exactly what the sizing is. I know they're 5-foot round culverts. My hope and assumption is that they can accommodate anything that this particular culvert can convey. Those two can convey it downstream.
So we're getting to the brook, basically. Okay.
We're getting to the brook, and then we're getting to the aqueduct, which we know is not sized properly. But again,
I know,
working on
one
the
step at a
things we can
time.
control.
I get it. Yeah, okay. Sorry, just, oh, all right.
If you're a resident,
Jeffrey Chester from Downingwood. I know Andrea and Sal addressed most of the issues that I had written down to ask if Broadway has had, I don't want to use the word innumerable loosely, but we've had lots of water main breaks. You're going to be tearing up road that infrastructure's got to be 50, 60 or more years old. That built into the plan as well.
Yeah, we've reached out to all the utility companies and they'll have an opportunity to like replace their water main within this area. So that they'll have their opportunities for potential betterments, as they call them.
General question. So
Yeah.
when you say that,
Sorry, could you at least just give your name?
oh, sorry, Melinda Chapelier. So when Broadway floods, it's not because the water's escaping the culvert under the road, right? It's because the water from the catch basins can't get into the culvert and then they're backing out of the catch basin.
It's probably a little bit of both because like, obviously we saw in that one picture that the pipes aren't really like connected to the whole existing system too great, and there's also like a pond or something upstream, I believe, that also like overflows and obviously like just as a kind of a trickle down effect, like all the way down to the existing culvert. So it's a little bit of both is my answer.
Right, but the Halsey Pond stream is traveling from east to west in the culvert. So if it escapes underground, how does it get up to Broadway? That's not what's flooding Broadway. It's the water from the catch basins along Broadway can't get into the culvert, right?
Well, those we'll obviously upgrade all the catch basins in the area. Like, and we'll have new tie-ins to our existing culvert and everything.
So how many catch basins are tied into that culvert?
There's a manhole just next to it where that stub pipe, I believe that was the pipe that was broken. And then the two on this on the Downingwood condominium driveway there, those tie in as well through a man. And then there's obviously these two structures on the northern side. The one on the west side of the road actually outlets directly above the existing structure. So quite a bit.
Those are only two catch basins on South Broadway connected to that culvert?
Well, there would be upstream stuff from the existing manhole as well. I don't know how far that manhole travels south of the page, or that's west of the page.
David, do you have a question?
yeah, a couple.
Because then we have a whole nother subject matter
You
here.
know, I had the pleasure of living at 2 Downing Court, which is the property that borders that entire section, for a couple of years. So I hear you're going to involve the Downingport people. But as a point of fact, Downingport does not have a homeowners association. So there are individual owners of each of those units, which there are a dozen there. And there is a quote informal agreement about maintaining that road surface. There has been a lot over the years before I came, while I was there, and afterwards, issues about who pays for repairing that road when it gets damaged, etc. The key point, though, is that road was never Downing Court from East Clinton to Downing Wood Road. Was never built to standard road standards. It was basically built like a driveway. So heavy trucks, etc., going over that destroy the surface fairly quickly. And if you're diverting traffic for 3 to 6 months and all of the construction vehicles going into Downing Wood are bumping up and down over there, speed, I don't know if speed bumps still exist, but we stuck them in for a while. That's going to present a problem, and they don't have an organization to deal with, to address that with you or the village. So there will be some figuring out there, but probably that should be addressed before, which you've already mentioned, which is good. Then I think what I heard Larry say, if I would just like that confirmed, is, well, stepping back, when it floods now and there's too much water, the excess water goes out onto Broadway and then follows down Broadway and floods it and empties down into Station Road. You're going to eliminate that, which means that all that water is going to go on the other side. So I think what I heard Larry say is the hydrology of the two other things right downstream, Dow's Lane and Station Road, is large enough to carry all the capacity of what you're putting in now is.
If it was recently replaced, it was definitely designed to 50-year design storm. So, and that's what we're designed to. We'll obviously look into something greater, but that should have no issue conveying that flow there.
Our hydraulic analysis accounts for, we always look at downstream impacts. So what we would do is we would analyze the proposed downstream velocities, downstream flows, peak flows of the 50-year storm, the 100-year storm, take all of those into account and actually compare them to the existing condition to make sure that we're at least bettering those conditions to accommodate the culverts downstream. And them being upsized is just a plus of that.
And just for wild interest's sake, you're talking 4 foot high by 7 foot wide.
3 foot. It'll be a 3 foot opening by 7 foot wide opening.
And just while you're doing that, like on Broadway, it looks like you're doing like 6 foot round pipe on Harriman.
We've looked into that. We looked into the elliptical reinforced pipe. It's still being considered. We have to kind of evaluate what we want hydraulically. The box culvert, I believe, performs a little better. Obviously, the elliptical pipe would be a little less of an impact. So it's you gotta like weigh your decisions there. Yeah.
The elliptical one looks like the problem is you could walk right through it. Is a potential nuisance. Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further questions, and thank you very much for coming out and explaining.
Again, if everyone could just formalize any questions they have in an email to Larry or myself, that'd be excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
They running around that thing.
You guys want to switch?
Yeah, no,
Sure.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.
Sure.
I was just confirming, Arlene said she was calling, I said, yeah, it is Goldie, but I'm not.
Oh.
Thank you.
Or you said, I mean,
I know him.
sorry. For you, oh, God.
You just tweaked the tap button, Larry?
Yeah, but it's.
All day meeting
Still
is
gonna run, but it's-
I get it.
Even though everyone's got
No
short
problem.
sleeves, I've got long sleeves out free. So.
I can still hear you. That's.
That's fine, I'm not,
Well, here for you.
I'm not worried.
Thank you.
I'll pass it along.
Yeah. That was me, my natural tone.
No, it's very loud.
Yeah, there is some mic feeding back. I hear.
No, that's why I
It
took
was
my.
probably me, he took my mic.
Well, I think- I'm speculating. So I think because his is under that mic.
Oh, you got a sound loop. Okay, you're on for our capital budget presentation.
Do you wanna pull it up?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right, I'll get
Need a bigger
started.
computer? That's scary.
All right, so I'll start by highlighting any changes we made since the last time we discussed this. So the first addition we added is under 2526 DPW. It's Station Road Bridge Engineering for 50,000. And then following that in 2627 is the Station Road Bridge Structural Repair for 800,000.
So, yeah, just to refresh your memory, this is the bridge immediately to the west of the aqueduct. That bridge, while there's some repairs that we can do currently, there's no danger of it falling, but it does need to be replaced. So there are some temporary issues that we can do, repairs that we can take care of right now, which we will. But the replacement of that needs to be planned for, so the engineering is what we're looking for. The immediate, and then after that is obviously the construction.
And that 800,000 would cover the construction?
That's our current estimate, having not done engineering yet.
No, I
But
understand.
yes, that's the
Yeah.
ballpark.
I just want to make sure that's what your estimate was for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So,
Another one of the changes is the existing street sweeper trade-in value. Originally, we had it at about 25,000, the DPW priced that out. So right now, it's looking like we could get about 40,000 for our existing sweeper. The next change, based on last meeting's discussions in the fire department, the building safety upgrades were moved up into the 25-26 budget. So we took both the amount that was in 26-27 and 27-28, moved it into 25-26 with the first piece to be borrowed currently, and then the next piece to be borrowed the following year, but to be approved as part of this budget.
So you've got the double asterisk, which probably repeats what you just said, but indicating project approval in current capital budget with borrowing to occur in a subsequent year. That to me implies that the entire thing will be borrowed later, but that we're committing to the project. Is that-
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Fine.
Because
As
you need
opposed
that
to-
commitment to go out and do reback.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and in the case of these upgrades, it's really a recognition of the fact that while some of the building upgrades can take place rather quickly and within 1 year, some of them cannot. There's some that will be going out another year beyond that.
There's no point in paying borrowing costs when we don't have the plan to execute.
Correct.
And I just want, I'm sorry, you go first.
I was just gonna say, for the building safety upgrades, we have that, and they're working on that plan, and it's the size
The projects have been identified.
they have.
Yeah, and so we kind of lump them together as one, heading, so that you're not looking at all these little.
Somewhere in that, there was the decontamination.
Yeah,
and
that's part of it.
And the rear fire escape.
We have a breakout. of communities.
Sorry about that, Kate.
No, that's okay. All right, so including, there's actually many line items. It's to repair the sidewalk falling apart in the rear of the building, stabilization and painting the fire escape, fixing the deteriorating wall in the basement area, hiring an engineer to spec out stucco for the rear of the building. Firehouse window replacement, gas migration, complete dual fuel to existing boiler, structural addition to create an addition under the fire escape to store the decontamination room for an air compressor, hiring an engineer to spec out the elevator and make the firehouse ADA compatible, hiring an engineer to spec out the generator, actually stuccoing the rear of the building, installing the generator. That is everything.
And that's all $456,000 put together?
Correct.
Oh, wow, okay. Sounds like it should be. I just want to confirm, I know I confirmed this once before, but things change and everything. So there's $300,000 for an Slate African Memorial. That's not for like a statue, that's to make the park that's gonna be there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it also includes the infrastructure work that would be necessary to create that area. So it's curb extensions and whatnot. We'll be passing along some information about potential grant for that in the coming days, and I'll probably bring it up. Once I have more details, I'll bring it up on Monday.
But to be, yeah, to
But
be
yes,
totally transparent, the result of this project will be a place where people can sit down and hang out, and it'll be a publicly used space, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It hasn't been designed yet.
I know, I understand that.
But yes, that's the
And if you're
general.
not careful,
I said that's the
you're gonna be on the
intention.
I
committee.
think, I think it's important to kind of make this point though, because I think that street is also, I know people think a dangerous place to cross the street. So part of the design of that is really just like a public benefit that is helpful because we're gonna have something there. But I think if people think African Memorial Burial Ground
That's
costs
fair.
$300,000, I think it's misleading because it's really
Right, that's what I
about
keep asking.
a street safety issue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Children walk
to
that
that
way.
point,
Yeah.
the grant discussion that Larry just alluded to, we were having that conversation today, and is very much in his mind, I'll call it, public, sidewalk and safety issues that pertain to this in the immediate vicinity of that, park, as well as other areas around that.
Yeah, and so I think that this
We
is a.
can break it out.
Yeah.
If it's,
Yeah.
look, if it's
Yeah.
in any way troublesome, or you think it would be more helpful to have things broken out, we're happy to break it out.
I think it's more helpful to have
Yeah.
it broken out because I think it's confusing for people because I think the design work for the having a memorial, a small memorial is very different from hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Right.
That are really about a street
About
safety
infrastructure.
issue.
Yeah.
Our infrastructure.
But I also think a park is important, because like, we walk our dog around there a lot, and, well, my wife does. And, I stay more local. She likes to drive the dog, it's another story. And it's like, it's in that area would be beautiful to have a place where you could like stop and sit down and be contemplative and enjoy the nice day and everything and stuff. I thought that would be important, including that would be an important site for the reason why we're building the site there and everything. So it just would serve a lot of good purposes.
That's fair.
I think the breakout, just to put a ballpark idea, I think the breakout is probably $200,000 worth of infrastructure work
Mhm.
and $150,000 in improvements for the memorial, including design and all that. Again, we haven't done the design yet, so we'll see where that goes, but that's roughly the breakout.
Because I just remember that when it was first proposed, it just seemed like I don't remember the number. Do you remember the number? It seemed like it was like $50,000.
Yeah, it really, we really never got to the point where we knew exactly
Mhm.
where we were headed with it. I think if we establish a number, ahead of time, whether it's 100,000, 150, whatever the number is, then that's the number we'll work towards. You know what I mean? It'll be helpful for the committee to know that at some point.
Yeah.
Did I hear you right that there's gonna be grants that you're looking at for this?
Yes. So I'll talk about it on Monday. I
Oh,
don't want to keep you in suspense, but honestly, we have a meeting with the grant writer tomorrow.
See you
So-
on
He
Monday.
just made the mistake of mentioning it to
No,
me,
but
so
I,
I.
no, but I
back
wanted
you.
to, but I wanted to point out that there are opportunities.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right, Katie, get us back on track.
Okay, so I guess then we can move on to the numbers. So. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Okay, so the first schedule, this schedule here, so the first two columns, the principal and interest column, that shows our current borrowings. So we owe this regardless, because these are already approved existing projects. So that's our current debt. The capital additions column shows the change in what our debt payments would be if every single project on here were to be approved, even the future year projects. Those are all included in here. These numbers, I mean, a rough
So to
estimate.
that point, theoretically, not all of it may end up laying out the way you just described. For example, if the fire
Correct.
department, if something in that fire department work takes an extra year to be designed and built, okay.
Right. And this, I just assumed a 3.5% borrowing rate. That's just the estimate that I use. Obviously, these would fluctuate based on if we did a ban or a bond. So this is just an estimate here. And then the increase, decrease over prior years shows what the additional debt service costs would be. So if everything listed in the 25-26 projects were to be approved, next year's debt service cost would increase by about $437,000. Then similarly, the next schedule is pretty much the same layout, but this is for the water funds and any debt service for those projects, because the water fund's funded by the rate, so that would be separate from an operating budget. So again, if everything were to be approved for 25-26, the increase in debt service for the water fund starting in the 26-27 year would be about 33,000 more. On the next page.
It's the second page of
And then here I just put together a summary of what our outstanding debt has been since 2017. Then I listed out how much we borrowed in each of those years. That's pretty much what I have in terms of the numbers. I don't know if you want to go into
So
projects more.
well, a big chunk of it is all the culvert and drainage. work.
Yes, yeah, big projects, definitely. What was that?
I think it's relatively unavoidable. Putting it off is just gonna create damage elsewhere that gets repaired on an emergency basis. The rec and parks, the senior solar panels and the transfer switch and so on. Is that also a category where you would approve but not yet borrow until you know you jump the hurdle of the structure in a park?
That's it's a possibility. I would say, we're at a point now where we've been awarded those funds from Westchester County, but we've not yet even started the contracting process, the grant contracting process with them. I mean, I would say there's a chance, a pretty good chance that the borrowings really don't need to happen until 2026, 27.
Got it.
So this could be one of those that gets an asterisk and is the actual borrowings moved out. We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing we did talk about, we didn't talk so much about timing, but we did talk about exactly what to include as outside funding, because there's three different funding sources for this project. One is the CDBG money, which is what we're talking about. But the second is the New York Sun solar tax credit, solar credits, I should say. And those are fairly firm. There should be funding from New York State for those. The part that is unknown is the federal solar tax credits. So what we did for these numbers here, these numbers reflect only CDBG and New York Sun. They don't reflect the federal tax credits, which were part of the Inflation Reduction Act. I think
Which the whole thing is.
has a chance to not exist.
Yeah.
But you could be pleasantly surprised.
Well, if
We
that
should
happens,
plan
good
it,
for
But
us.
like, but I, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this every time we talk about budget, is that, you know,
Yeah.
anything from the federal government shouldn't be.
Oh, I think it's wise.
Right, so that's the approach we took. Now, is there also a chance that New York Sun tax credits will run out of money and they don't refund it in time to fund our project? That's always a possibility. But we kind of took an educated guess on which things would be more likely to be at risk. And we felt the federal tax credits were. So in the future, if something happens with the New York Sun, you'll hear from us again. You know. But anyway, so we didn't talk about timing, but I think it's probably a fair point. I think if you project out, by the time you are in contract and meet all the requirements and maybe even wait for state legislation, like you talked about, you may be pushing to 26, which would at least help the numbers look a little better.
Yeah.
Good point.
Nobody else has other questions at the moment. What's timing on this? When do you need us to say, go for it then, borrow?
Well, yeah, so ideally, we were trying to get capital budget at least approved by the second June meeting, so that's coming Monday.
Okay.
But we need to make sure that we've had a chance to look over the projects, be fully comfortable with what's there. Ask us any more questions or details you may need. And so I don't think we're trying to rush that.
Yeah, no, I understand.
The reality is there's really nothing on this list, for the most part. There's not much on this list that is going to be held up if you take it until July to adopt the capital budget. I think as long as we have, about the only one that's even contingent on any of this is actually getting out the bid for the rescue vehicle. I have the bid specs for the fire department's rescue vehicle. There's a long lead time on those items, so they're anxious to get out the bid. I told the fire chief today, I was hesitant to go out to bid until the capital budget was approved, so I knew fully where the board was. But if you turn around and say that's the last one on your list to be cut, then we'll at least get out to bid.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably.
It doesn't, going out to bid doesn't obligate you, but the problem is with a bid like this, it's not the type of bid where the bidder simply writes in a number and that's the bid price. They actually have to prepare drawings and diagrams of what they're proposing to build for you. It's kind of a design build thing.
Sure.
So there's an investment on the bidder's part. And so I don't want to turn around in July and say, yeah, we were just kidding,
Understood. So
that's the only one that's really even a contingent. Anything else here is really, it could wait a month.
So unless anybody else objects, I don't mind if you put it on for the next meeting. I mean, send us the information as soon as a few little things that were asked for, and like a complete package as soon as you can. And if worst comes to worst, we could always push it off one meeting into July.
July 14th, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
I looked it up. It's
Okay.
Do we have, I just have a quick question. Didn't we have a conversation about the replacement of police vehicle, the parking enforcement vehicle? I thought
Oh,
there was
that's
gonna be
right.
more information on
Yeah, that, we didn't,
Good choice of the model, I think.
yeah, no, but this
Yeah,
was,
that was part of that, vehicle analysis that I sent out.
Okay.
I remember reading that and with the police vehicle, the idea that why does it need to be a Blazer, you know, instead of a smaller, less expensive, less gas using vehicle, so. Oh, this is EV, but still, okay, but still more expensive.
Right, yeah. I think the reasoning was
That he's tall.
that, yeah.
And I'm sorry, but like, you know, that would be like, you know, redoing Larry's office because he's tall, you know, the next village administrator might not be tall. I wasn't that moved by that argument.
That's fine.
I can pull up the vehicle analysis for the exact.
While you're doing that, I have a different question.
Yeah.
Based on past history, when we order this fire truck, how do we do the financing? Meaning, are we writing a big deposit check? Or
No.
is it a letter of credit so that they can borrow against or do whatever they want to do so that we're never, when they go bankrupt, we aren't trying to collect money?
Yeah, no, it's
It's happened in Irvington's history.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
actually, you know, in the last 20 years.
Thankfully, it was only like 25 grand, but it's, you know, we're not giving money away.
No,
This is $1 million.
Oh, it was, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and we ultimately recovered from our insurance bond.
Yeah,
But that being said, the terms that we generally put out are cash on delivery or, you know,
yeah.
10 days, whatever. The, it's up to the bidder to finance the build of the
Fine.
equipment. So that's gonna be built into the cost,
COD works for me.
but that's so be it, you know?
I just want control until the moment they drive it up.
The most that I've ever seen happen, forgetting about what happened here in Irvington, the
Yeah.
most that I've ever seen happen is that when the chassis is built and becomes available and is registered with a serial number, that chassis is registered in your name.
Right, we can, it's our it's security.
So that if the company were to go bankrupt, that is
Take
not
it.
an asset of their company, it's an asset of ours.
Got it.
While it may be sitting in their factory, it's still our asset.
Understood.
But I'm not even suggesting whether that's gonna happen. or not. All I'm saying is typically it's CODs,
Got it.
so,
Fair enough.
which you'll pay for.
I understood.
I found the explanation for the Nissan Leaf. So they said they requested a Chevy Blazer, which is considered a midsize SUV and offers a balance of interior space, performance, and functionality. The village already operates a fleet of Blazers, which makes it practical and cost effective to maintain consistency. Standardizing vehicles simplifies maintenance, streamlines parts inventory, reduce downtime. Additionally, the larger battery capacity provides longer battery life compared to smaller vehicles, contributing to greater operational sustainability and long-term efficiency. That's the explanation they provided.
And actually, if there is a point to pick out of that, it is the battery life, to be honest with you, because you have to remember the parking vehicle does have a considerable amount of equipment on it. It has multiple cameras and for the automated parking system that we operate. So there's a point there that should be looked at, which is not to say that a Leaf can't work, but it may not have the battery life. And I know that's the case right now because the car itself is deteriorated, the battery, just because it's old.
We can discuss this more offline,
Yeah.
right, obviously.
Yeah. Understood.
But thank you for that.
Yeah. It's,
So you can aim for the next meeting. Everybody can comment in the interim when you send things
Okay.
around. And if we want to defer, because we've got some questions, we can do that. By then, we should be able to at least say to you, okay, go order the chassis for the truck. Again, anybody else can overrule me at that meeting on that. making it
I
executive.
thought the rush was for the facility for the decontamination. Wasn't
No.
that what you said they're in a rush to do?
No, the rescue vehicle.
The rescue do. Oh,
It's
yeah.
got a long lead time.
Just-
I mean, they all have a
to
long
start
lead
the
time,
bidding
but this is even longer, right?
So look, we'll put it on the agenda. I think that's
Yeah.
great. And just because it's on the agenda doesn't mean you have to rubber stamp what's there.
Yeah,
If there are
and
questions
that's-
at that meeting
yeah.
and we can answer them, we'll answer them. We
course.
can make changes on the fly if they're not significant. Obviously, if they're much more significant, then we'll push it off to July. So we have the option of both, I think is what you're saying.
So just to clarify, the changes for Monday, we'll break out the enslaved African memorial, the 300,000. And then, I'll recalculate the borrowing, to happen in 26-27 for the senior center solar and transfer switch.
Okay. And if you, was everybody okay with sort of the firehouse breakout of what those two numbers were, the 301? All right. Meaning she doesn't have to, Katie doesn't have to. put
No,
it-
no.
You want it in.
No, it doesn't need to be.
Oh,
I
fine.
understand.
Okay, yeah, good, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that there's only so much they're gonna be able to get done in 1 year. Given that they're such diverse type projects,
Yeah,
it's not like they're calling one contractor job, it's multiple disciplines and trades. And they
And
all
the safety
volunteers.
stuff needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, and it's there, it's in the.
yeah, it'll be
budget,
in their
addressed.
control, in effect.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, and then should we mention the facility planning consultant?
Sure.
So the original budget, we have the facility planning consultant line with question marks. So at this point, we took it out just because no negotiations have been done yet. And then at any point, once that's done, we can adjust the capital budget on its own for that item.
okay.
Right.
If
We
we,
didn't even want to leave a placeholder in there because we couldn't put a number. in.
yeah,
So.
I totally
Wouldn't that
get
give information to the bidders?
Well, exactly.
Yes.
So it made more sense to leave it out, but the bottom line is, this is not your only bite at the apple. If you adopt this budget either now or in July.
Yeah. And
you still don't have a number for the facilities consultant, when you do, we just amend the capital budget.
Yeah.
Not a big problem.
And I'm assuming, this is a philosophical question here, that it makes sense to borrow for that particular purpose as opposed to look at fund balance. Or is that an open okay,
Yeah, I don't know.
okay,
I don't know that there's an answer to that yet.
perfect. Well, that
It depends on the
means
order of
there's a
magnitude.
discussion to be had.
It is a one-time.
Yeah. Yes, it better be. Okay,
It's tough to borrow for it because it's planning money, so you pay that back over 5 years. It's not like
Yeah.
a 10 or 15-year
Yeah.
project. So it's a pretty rapid payback, so
It seems like a good candidate for.
yeah, it could be.
if there are no further matters, then I'm gonna make a motion to go to executive session to discuss state personnel.
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
Are we going upstairs or are we staying?
I guess we could do it
Whatever you
here.
guys want.
I'm sorry to chase everybody out, but thank you. Thank you.